Hey fellow babies, welcome back to Pachter Factor on SIFTD.net. If you're a Patreon patron, thank you for your patronage. If you're watching on YouTube as a subscriber, thank you for that. It is the holidays, so I'm sure you've had a lot on your minds, but see if you can remember to link your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch Prime account. We get paid by Amazon if you do that, and the instructions are in the show description below. Okay, fellow babies, our question today from SIFTD from Kev Masters. What made you decide to become a video game financial analyst versus covering some other sector? What were the first steps you took? How'd you get your foot in the door? How difficult is it for young analysts to end up covering the game sector? What do you recommend they do to go down that path? I would not recommend doing it, period. But I'll tell you how I did it. I was a tax lawyer, and after being a tax lawyer doing transactional tax work, meaning that I worked on deals and I was the tax lawyer who helped write up all the documents to get contracts signed to make sure the deal got done and that the tax consequences were what they were supposed to be, because you can always screw up a deal and trigger unwanted tax gains or screw up the ability to charge things off. And I was really good at it. And because I was so good at it, I morphed into being a mergers and acquisitions guy. I got an MBA, and I did M&A for mergers and acquisitions for the better part of maybe 5-6 years. Did a couple hundred deals, more volume just because I worked for a company who were getting rid of a bunch of assets, so I sold off a bunch of stuff. And that morphed me into being a finance guy, and I ended up going from that to being in strategic planning for an oil company. I ended up leaving, long story, but I boxed myself out of a job. I as head of strategic planning, I downsized the company by a couple thousand employees, and I took myself out of my job, and I took the package and left, and became an investment banker. I worked for an unethical piece of and I wished him death after I left working for him, because he screwed me out of several $100,000 of fees on a deal, and he ended up dying a horrible death, and I take full responsibility. I stuck pins in a voodoo doll and wanted him dead, and then wanted him to suffer, and he suffered. So moral of the story is don't mess with me. And I found myself unemployed after that guy didn't pay me, and I had to leave because he was being unethical. So the thing I'm the best at in the world is fantasy football, and when I pay attention. And a friend of mine who was a portfolio manager at TCW at the time, he's since retired, was looking for fantasy football advice and called me, and he knew I'd quit working for this clown. And he recommended I talk to Wedbush because they were looking for a director of research. And I got hired as director of research. And I didn't actually know what research analysts did, and I didn't actually understand it. But I remember I literally interviewed for this job on September 27th, 1999, and I was hired on September 27th, 1999. So I interviewed on September 7th, and I started September 27th. And I figured out what research analysts do, and at the time I worked for some doofus who required that in order to be director of research, I had to have all the licenses of an analyst, and I had to cover stocks myself. So I tried to find local companies in Southern California that were easy to understand. So I picked up Vans, Skechers, and Oakley. And I picked them because we didn't cover apparel or footwear or eyewear, and all three were Southern California companies. Vans was in City of Commerce, I think, or next door to that, whatever it's called. Anyway, whatever that town is called. Skechers was in Torrance or Manhattan Beach, someplace over there, and Oakley was down south in Foothill, I think. So I picked up three local companies, and I covered apparel and footwear for a year. And I hired a video game analyst right at the end of '99, and in early 2001, he got hired to go to work for Midway as head of strategic planning. And he was already covering all the video game companies, and I loved what he was doing. I thought it was really interesting. So I just replaced him. I just appointed myself to take over his coverage, and I hired a guy to cover Vans, Skechers, and Oakley, and a bunch of other, Columbia Sportswear, and I forgot who makes all these Deckers, who makes UGG boots and all that other. And I've been a video game analyst ever since February 2001. So I got lucky because I hired a guy who was passionate about it and was actually quite good. He only did it for a year, but he was good. And he went to Midway and ended up, I don't even know what he's doing now, but he's retired. And I've been covering games ever since. So that's how I did it. The foot in the door, it's who you know, obviously. The difference between this job now and this job 20 years ago you could make a ton of money being an analyst on Wall Street, and now you can't. I'm sure that there are 5%, 10% of analysts who make $1 million a year, but there's 95% who don't. And it is really a hard job for a newbie. We work on the sell side, so we're the research guys. The buy side are the guys who buy our research and actually invest the money. Plenty of people on the buy side make $1 million a year. So there's probably 10,000 buy side analysts, maybe 12,000. There's probably 1,500 sell side analysts. So why would you take the job where there's fewer people and they make less money when you could have the job where there's a lot of them and make more money? The only good thing about being a sell-side analyst is that most sell-side analysts can make the jump and go be a buy-side analyst. And so a lot of them do. And I know several who make millions and millions and millions who started as sell-side analysts and moved over. I would only do this if you don't particularly value your free time, because our job is hard. I'm old now, so I have the luxury of not doing this anymore. But for 18 years, I was on the morning call at 4:15 every single morning, and 5 days a week. And I, except for maybe slow periods like right now, typically didn't finish work till 3, so 11-hour days. No break, eat at your desk. And on earnings, which is, I cover 25 stocks, so 25 different companies report every quarter, so I have 100 earnings reports. That adds about 3 hours to the day for 100 days, 100 times. So it's just an extra 300 hours of work. So, I'm working, probably an average of about 65 hours a week. And I get paid plenty, but I'm good. I'm better than the other guys who do what I do, and it's hard to be the big dog and be number one. So I wouldn't recommend it. It's interesting and fun, but it's one thing to say, I play games, therefore I be a good games analyst. That's not what makes you a good game analyst. What makes you a good game analyst is understanding how games are made, understanding the cost, understanding why they sell what they sell, understanding the profit margin on them, understanding who plays and why they spend money. So I will say, we did a segment on NFTs. We could have done a segment on IDFA, because that's the Apple, prohibition on following consumers around from site to site on their iPhone. And it impacts the ability to acquire users for a mobile game. It's a buzzword. And I would say of the 30 analysts who cover video games, 3 actually understand how IDFA works and how it impacts companies' spending patterns. And the other 27 talk about it like they do understand it, but they don't. And so I get constantly questions from investors saying, well, such and such analyst said this. And I'm like, I don't care what they said. They're idiots. I had a call the other day, and the client goes, I talked to some other guy who covers skills, and he didn't agree with you on that. And I go, great, talk to him more and make the wrong decision. I don't care. And he's like, well, don't you care what he had to say? And I go, no, I don't. He's an idiot. I don't care. It doesn't matter. Why would you waste your time talking to somebody who's an idiot? I said, that's like telling me that you heard on Fox News that vaccines don't work and that the election was stolen from Trump. Okay. If that's what you want to believe, that's okay with me. But it doesn't make it right because you heard it on Fox News. So shut up. So I think the answer, how difficult is it to end up covering the gaming sector? There's 30 of us. So If you're one of the 1,500 people, then you've got a 30 out of 1,500. What's that? 2% chance of covering games. That's how difficult it is. What do I recommend they do to go down that path? If you really want to be a video game analyst, then get a job as a research associate working for a video game analyst, and hope that they're good enough that they get offered another job. One of my former associates is a video game analyst now, and I've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The other 7 aren't. It's hard, and he's working for a small firm and not really that good. And I'm not going anywhere. But most of the analysts who cover the sector were covering something else and moved into it because the analysts covering it left and they replaced them. So the best way to do it is, go to work for a guy who's really sick or old and you think he's going to retire or die, and then take his job when he leaves. Thanks for joining us on Pachter Factor on SIFTD.net. If you're a Patreon patron or a YouTube subscriber, thank you for your patronage, and you're getting this real time. If you can remember, please link your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch Prime account. The directions are in the show description below. And if you are not supporting us financially, but you just love all the pack you can get a hold of, then please follow me on Twitter. You'll get even more on Twitter at Michael Pachter. See you next time.